You should really try acting more like your sister. Aubrey. At least she makes us proud. My mother said it loud enough for the entire private dining room to hear servers, cousins, business partners, anyone unfortunate enough to witness the monthly Lennox family spectacle. My father didn't even look up from his wine. She's not even half the woman Blair is, he muttered. Not half the success. Not half the class. A chorus of polite laughter circled the table. Blair perfect. Blair smiled delicately, as if she didn't enjoy every second of it. I kept my hands folded in my lap, nails digging into my palm, reminding myself not to react. This was how every Lennox birthday went. Mine. Anyway. Lavish venue. Designer cake. Expensive wine. And humiliation served as the main course. But tonight felt different. Because tonight, I wasn't the same daughter they'd spent years beating down. Tonight, I had a card they didn't know I was about to play. My mother lifted her champagne glass. Maybe if you cared about your future the way Blair cares about hers, you wouldn't be struggling so much. Struggling, I echoed. She nodded. Lips pursed in faux sympathy. You work at that tiny company. What do you even do there? Social media marketing. It's not really a career. Sweetheart. Dad snorted. If she had ambition, she'd be at Lennox Capital with Blair. But you chose your little hobbies instead. Blair touched my hand with a patronizing smile. Don't worry, sis. Not everyone is cut out for high-level business. I tilted my head. Is that why you're being paid twice the industry average? Blair blinked. What? And is that why your employment contract includes a separate annual performance fund wired to your personal account instead of payroll? Her smile faltered. Mom stiffened. That's none of your concern. I leaned back in my chair. Voice calm. Almost pleasant. Well, you know. Funny thing. The IRS found it very interesting when they reviewed the routing numbers. My father's fork clattered onto his plate. The entire room went silent. Because they all knew one thing. The Lennox family cared about wealth more than anything but being caught hiding it. That was the one sin they couldn't swallow. Mom's voice dropped to a hiss. What exactly are you implying that I know? I said simply. She looked at me like she wanted to rip the words out of my mouth. I smiled sweetly. Politely. Devastatingly. You've spent years telling me to be more like Blair, so I figured you wouldn't mind if I started getting paid like her. Too. Since, you're already funneling money through her accounts. Gasps erupted around the table. Blair went white. My father's jaw tightened so hard I heard it crack. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one shrinking. They were. Before I continue, thank you for staying with me through this first explosive moment. If you've ever been underestimated by your own family or told you'd never measure up, your quiet support through a like, a comment, a share, or even a gentle subscribe truly means more than I can say. I'm grateful you're here with me. Growing up in the Lennox family felt like living in a house built of mirrors. Every reflection showed me what I wasn't. Not graceful enough. Not brilliant enough. Not obedient enough. Not Blair. Blair was the golden daughter since the moment she cried for the first time. Perfect grades. Perfect hair. Perfect posture. Perfect lies. Everything she touched turned into applause. Everything I touched became a lecture. When Blair got a C in chemistry once, Mom blamed the teacher. When I got an A in calculus, Dad asked why I couldn't apply myself like your sister. Blair got private tutors and violin lessons. I got used textbooks and a good luck. Kiddo. Blair got applause for existing. I got criticism for breathing wrong. And the worst part, I believed them. I believed I was the lesser one. The messy one. The disappointment. Until last year when everything started to crack. It began with a simple mistake at the firm where I worked. Our finance director quit suddenly, and I had to help reconcile some accounts for a client whose business was tied to Lennox Capital, my parents' company. That was the first time I ever saw Blair's payroll numbers. Double the average. Triple. If you included the bonuses. At first, I thought it was nepotism. Then I found 2 accounts tied to her Social Security number that didn't follow payroll laws at all. Transfers labeled as external consulting fees, paid directly from Lennox Capital's internal investment pool. I shouldn't have had access. But a misfiled export dropped into my inbox by accident. That accident changed everything. A month later, I stumbled onto something worse: fund movements from our parents' trust, large sums funneled through dummy vendors that didn't exist. Every penny ended up in accounts with Blair's name on them. Blair's success wasn't earned. It was fabricated. Her promotions, bought. Her investor wins someone else's numbers. Her cushy salary, a money laundering pipeline disguised as nepotism, but built to hide something much bigger. But the final piece clicked into place the day Mom confronted me about a tax letter that arrived at the wrong address. She stood in my doorway, holding the envelope with nails painted Lennox red. "You didn't open this. Did you know?" I said, confused. Her shoulders relaxed. "It's Blair's. Sensitive paperwork." But I had seen it. Not the content, just the sender. The Federal Tax Crimes Division. Suddenly, everything made sense. The money, the secrecy, the fake vendors, the radical favoritism. They weren't just funneling money. They were hiding it. And every time they compared me to Blair, every time they humiliated me, diminished me, belittled me, it wasn't because I wasn't enough. It was because I was a threat, a risk. The one daughter who wasn't involved in the laundering scheme. The one daughter they couldn't control. The one daughter who might ask questions. And I had, which made their snide comments at that birthday dinner feel different now. They weren't mocking me. They were panicking. Because someone who wasn't supposed to know anything knew everything. My mother recovered first, she always did. "Aubrey," she said through clenched teeth, smile glued to her face like wet paint. "You're making a scene. Sit down and apologize to your sister." I stayed standing. "No," I said. For a moment, the room forgot how to breathe. My father slowly turned his head, eyes narrowing the way they always did right before he crushed something delicate. "What did you just say?" he asked. I said no. My voice was steady, eerily so, considering the hurricane rattling in my chest. Blair's wine glass trembled on the table. "You're embarrassing yourself," she hissed. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Yes," I said quietly. "I do." The room shifted. Air sharpened. My father leaned forward, elbows propped on the table as if preparing for cross-examination. "Darling," he murmured, "you've always struggled with reality. You let your emotions cloud your judgment." There it was. The old narrative, the convenient fiction they used to explain away every time I questioned their choices. I lifted my chin. Bank transfers aren't emotions. "Dad." Several guests exchanged glances. One even choked on their champagne. Blair slammed her napkin down. "You don't know anything about finance. Don't pretend you can interpret those numbers." "You're right," I said. "I didn't know anything. That's why I hired someone to interpret them for me." Dead. Silence. Every pair of eyes turned to me. Mom's voice dropped into a whisper that could slice steel. "You hired someone. A forensic accountant." I said calmly. The shockwave that rolled across the room nearly knocked Blair backward. My father's face turned the color of spoiled wine. You had no right. I had every right, I said. It was my name that popped up on a federal inquiry letter you tried to hide. Mom almost fainted. You opened that no. But I saw the sender. I folded my arms. And that was enough. The facade crumbled. Blair stood abruptly, knocking over her chair. You jealous little Blair. Dad warned. But she was past warning. Her perfect composure cracked like thin glass. You just can't stand that I'm everything you're not. She spat. I'm successful. I'm respected. I'm smart, you're funded. I corrected. Not successful. Not respected. Not talented. Just bankrolled. She sucked in a breath like I'd stabbed her. My mother finally snapped. That's enough. You either sit down and apologize, or you walk out of this family for good. The threat hung in the air. The line they dangled over my head since childhood. Except now, it didn't scare me anymore. I exhaled. Calm. Slow. Grounded. Okay. I whispered. I'll walk. Gasps exploded across the room. I pushed in my chair gently quiet in a way that felt louder than flipping the table and picked up my clutch. Where do you think you're going? Dad demanded. Away from the one place that's been poisoning me, I said, and then I did what none of them expected. I walked away. Not running, not crying, not breaking, just walking. Their voices erupted behind me, shouts, commands, pleas, threats, but none of them reached me anymore. At the door, I paused, turned my head just enough to see their stunned, horrified faces, and I said the sentence that turned their blood to ice. You shouldn't have taught me how to survive without you. Then I left, and for the first time in 24 years, I felt free. Leaving the Lennox table felt like stepping off a cliff, freeing. Yes, but terrifying in ways I wasn't prepared for. Freedom has a funny price tag. By the next morning, I learned exactly how dependent my family had made me without me noticing. My credit card frozen, my phone bill cut off, my health insurance canceled. The apartment I lived in was technically under the Lennox Trust. I had until the end of the week to vacate. It was their favorite punishment, give her nothing. So she comes crawling back for scraps. Except this time, I didn't crawl. I moved. Into a tiny studio with peeling paint and a water heater that moaned like a dying whale. Into a job that paid barely enough for groceries. Into a life that was raw. Quiet. Lonely, but mine. Every night. I came home exhausted. My hands cramped from typing. My eyes burned from staring at financial documents and online coursework. Because if my family wanted me powerless, I would become the opposite. I taught myself accounting and business law. I took certification classes in financial auditing. I studied every loophole, every corporate shell game, every laundering trick. I learned the system the same way they abused it. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't cinematic. It was work. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, I began to grow. Until one night, 6 months after I'd walked away, I got a call, not from my family, from Elias Sawyer, the forensic accountant I'd hired. He spoke in a low, urgent tone. Aubrey, I need you to come to my office. Immediately, my stomach dropped. What's wrong? It's your family's company, he said. I didn't understand the scale of it before, the scale of what he hesitated. Aubrey, this isn't just sloppy accounting or hidden bonuses. This is criminal. Millions have been moved through fake entities, laundered, disguised, buried. I paced my small living room. And Blair's accounts, my mother's trust, part of it, he said. But there's something bigger. Bigger. Your father, he whispered. I froze. What about him? There are files your parents tried to erase. Proof he discovered the laundering. Proof he confronted them. Proof he tried to stop it. I gripped the phone until my knuckles went white. And the worst part, Elias said. There's a pattern. They've been trying to pin the entire crime on you. My breath left my lungs. What? Why me? Because you're the only Lennox not involved, he said, and the easiest one to sacrifice. The room spun. If this goes public, Elias continued, your parents and Blair lose everything. Unless they shift the blame. My voice barely came out. So, what do I do? Elias exhaled. You're not powerless. You have the truth, and enough evidence to burn the entire company to the ground. My pulse pounded like a war drum. This was bigger than humiliation. Bigger than favoritism. This was a criminal empire built on silencing me. But they'd taught me something growing up, a lesson they didn't mean to teach, how to survive without them. And now how to destroy what they built. Before I continue, thank you for staying with me during this turning point. If you've ever rebuilt from nothing or been underestimated by the people who should have believed in you, your support through a like, comment, share, or even a gentle subscribe truly means more than I can express. I'm grateful you're here with me. Elias's office smelled like ink and burnt coffee, a strange comfort after the world I had come from. He stood beside a table overflowing with documents. Stacks, folders, hard drives, a 12-month timeline of every secret my family hoped would stay buried. We have everything, he said. Money trails, fake vendors, internal memos, deleted emails. And this, he tapped a sealed envelope. Your father's handwritten notes. My throat tightened. I thought Mom destroyed those. Not all of them. Elias said. Your father made copies. And he stored some with someone he trusted. Who? His personal attorney. I blinked. Dad never told me he had one. He didn't tell your mother. Either. Elias replied. Which probably saved your life. I sank into a chair. Why me? Why were they planning to frame me? Elias took a deep breath. Aubrey, laundering rings always need a fall person. Someone disposable. Someone who can't defend themselves. You fit every category they needed. Because I'm the failure, I whispered. No. His voice softened. Because you're the only innocent one. Silence settled between us heavy. Bitter. Necessary. Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. They're announcing it tonight. Get ahead of it before they bury you. Attached was a photo. My mother and Blair standing beside a podium at the Lennox Capital Annual Shareholder Gala. Dad's death anniversary gala, where they performed grief for cameras while funneling money behind the scenes. What are they announcing? I whispered. Elias looked grim. The only way they can clear themselves. They're about to blame you. Publicly. I stared at the photo. Blair in her designer dress. Pretending to be accomplished. My mother with her signature cold smile. Pretending to be loyal. My father's portrait in the background, pretending he died of natural causes. Something hot filled my chest. Not panic. Not fear. Resolve. I'm going. I said. Elias blinked. Aubrey, no. You can't walk into a public accusation alone. I'm not alone. I said, tapping the evidence binders. I have this. I have the truth. He hesitated. They won't go down quietly. I'm not asking them to. I said, I'm giving them a stage. He studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded. If you're set on this, I'll get everything prepared. That night, I stood in front of my mirror in my little studio apartment. No designer gown, no makeup team, just a simple black dress I bought on clearance. But for the first time in my life, I recognized the woman staring back at me. Not the disappointment. Not the invisible daughter. Not the family scapegoat. A threat. A storm. A reckoning. I gathered the evidence, took a breath, and walked out the door. If my family wanted a spectacle, I would give them one they would never forget. The Lennox Capital Annual Shareholder Gala was everything I remembered: crystal chandeliers, imported orchids, a string quartet playing songs no one recognized, and more designer perfume than clean oxygen. A shrine to greed. Security guards scanned the crowd as if looking for threats. They didn't know the biggest one had just stepped through the doors. Heads turned. Whispers rose. Aubrey, she showed up. I thought they disowned her. Why is she here? Why? Because tonight was the night my family tried to bury me. I planned to return the favor. Blair stood on stage, like a porcelain statue, flawless hair, flawless smile, flawless confidence built on stolen money. My mother looked regal in deep emerald satin. My father looked stern and unshakable, gripping a microphone with the authority of a king about to deliver his decree. Camera crews focused on them. Journalists leaned forward. My father cleared his throat. We have an urgent matter to address. A matter of financial misconduct perpetrated by me, I said loudly. Gasps rippled across the ballroom. Every head snapped toward me. Blair's face went white. My mother's lips parted in horror. My father's hand froze midair. I walked forward, heels echoing across the marble floor like a countdown. I stepped onto the stage, standing shoulder to shoulder with the people who'd once called me useless. Do you want to accuse me now? I asked softly. Or would you like me to show them this? First, I lifted the first binder. Across the front, Lennox Capital Internal Forensic Audit, prepared by Elias Sawyer. My father's face drained of color. My mother's hand trembled, Blair whispered. Oh my God. I opened the binder, projecting documents onto the oversized LED screen behind us. Vendor statements, routing slips, shell corporations, illegal transfers, Blair's falsified consulting accounts, my mother's offshore holdings, and most damning, my father's signature on laundering authorizations. The audience erupted. Is that real? That's illegal. They've been hiding this. Call the SEC, Blair snapped. You don't know what you're doing, really. I held up the next page. Because according to these emails, you do. Blair stared at the screen. Her own messages glowed behind her. Move it to my Cayman account before quarter close. Dad doesn't need to know. My father lunged toward me. Aubrey. Stop this. I stepped back. Stop with the truth. My mother tried to regain composure. She's manipulating documents. She's always been unstable. I held up the final piece. A sealed envelope. My father's handwriting across the front. If anything happens to me, Aubrey is the only one who can be trusted with this. Gasps echoed like thunder. I unsealed it. Hand steady. Inside was a letter, my father's confession that he tried to expose the laundering years ago, that my mother and Blair shut him down, that he feared for my safety. Reporters screamed questions. Shareholders surged to the front. Security moved toward the stage, but before they reached me, I said one last thing to the entire room. And to the family that tried to erase me, you wanted a scapegoat. You wanted someone to blame, fine. Blame me for this, for telling the world what you've done. My father shouted. My mother shrieked. Blair reached for my wrist, and I walked off the stage. Not running. Not afraid. Just finished. Because their empire had finally begun to crumble. The fallout hit faster than even I imagined. By the next morning, Lennox Capital wasn't a corporation anymore. It was a crime scene dressed in marble. Federal agents walked through the glass doors at dawn. Shareholders demanded emergency votes. Reporters camped outside the headquarters like vultures circling a carcass. And my family, the unstoppable Lennoxes, were suddenly very, very stoppable. My father was forced to step down immediately. My mother's accounts were frozen. Blair's consulting income vanished under scrutiny so fast she nearly fainted during the first SEC interview. By noon, the headlines were everywhere. Lennox Capital fraud exposed by estranged daughter. Golden family. Dirty empire. Sister's secret millions lead to federal raid. Every news anchor said the same words: Aubrey Lennox is the only family member not under investigation. The irony felt poetic. Around midday, I found myself sitting in a quiet corner of Elias's office as he flipped through the last pages of my father's file. "You did it," he murmured. I shook my head slowly. "No, my father did. I just refused to stay silent." Elias gave a small smile. "Aubrey," the board called. "The board. Why they want you." I blinked. "Want me? For what? To sit on the interim oversight committee?" He paused. "And if you want it to be the public face of the company's reform," I stared at him. Stunned. Me. The invisible daughter. The family scapegoat. The girl they said would never measure up. He continued. "You're the only one with clean hands. And the only one who doesn't need the power?" I let the words settle. This moment was everything my family fought to deny me. And yet, a quiet ache tugged at me. "I don't want to rebuild their empire," I said softly. "I want to build something that's mine." Elias nodded, as if he'd expected that, then walk away. He said, "You've already won." And just like that, I knew what I had to do. 2 weeks later, I stood on the balcony of my tiny studio apartment, watching sunlight spill across the city I used to feel too small for. My phone buzzed with another message from the board. "Final offer, we want you. Lead us. Fix what they broke." I typed back no. I'm starting over. And this time, on my own terms. I turned my phone off and breathed in the morning air cleaner. Lighter. Unrecognizable. This wasn't the life my family tried to trap me in. This was the life I chose, the life I built, the life that finally fit. And somewhere deep inside me, I felt my father's presence, not the man who failed me, but the man who tried to protect me when no one else would. I whispered into the quiet. I made it out. And for the first time ever, I believed it. Thank you for staying with me through the end of this journey. If Aubrey's story resonated with you, if you've ever reclaimed your power after years of being underestimated, your kind support through a like, to around a comment, a share, or even a quiet subscribe truly means more than I can express. I'm grateful you walked this path with me.